No mai, haere mai ki tēnei hui. Welcome to the International Relations Policy Refresh briefing for councillors. I'll just remind elected members that this is a live streamed workshop, and pertinent is the fact that we are in school holidays at the moment, so we are a little bit low on numbers and we have a few of us at a tangi, but just to remind people that feel free to provide any advice via email if we don't get the time. The workshop is going to be about 20 minutes of information. We're then going to have time for pass-high, and then we're also looking for councillors' feedback today, but I'll make sure that's rather clear so that we are trying to be as smooth sailing as possible. No mai, I'll hand over to officers for the introduction.
Afternoon, everyone. I think I'll kick off with a few introductions. Most of you will know most of the people sitting at the other end of the table, but if you don't, you've got Emily Deans from the strategy team, who's kind of been leading on the policy refresh. You've got Melanie from the IR team. And at the back there, you've also got Tom, who is the IR manager, and he's been here. He's been doing this for well over 20 years, haven't you, Tom? So very, very experienced. We also have Jennifer, who's currently in a meeting, so unable to be here. But in essence, you've got three people in the international relations team. So the policy refresh was actually came up quite a few years ago. And we initially started it, but then COVID happened, and so obviously nobody was flying anywhere, and so as a consequence we put it into hibernation, and actually a lot of the team actually went to work in different parts of the organisation. But one of the funny things about COVID is that what we hadn't expected is actually, with everyone at home, the appetite for holding those relations and working on those relationships actually came to the fore. And so actually the international relations team was busier than ever during COVID because there was a lot of international meetings happening at that time. But in essence, the drivers for the review, I will cover these off at a very high level, but Emily will take you through in a bit more detail. But the last policy was done in 2013. It was very much economically focused, so it had a very strong economic focus. And the reality is that that wasn't the case before the policy, and it hasn't really been the case afterwards. There is other aspects to international relations. So there's cultural aspects, there's civic aspects as well. The other thing that is a driver is the size of the workload for the available resources, which means that we have to focus more in terms of what we want to achieve from the policy. So just to give you an indication, we have 14 relationships across the globe. We have between 40 and 60 inward delegations per year, so that's almost up to one a week, which carries a lot of work. 40 to 60, that's right. And of course we've got our sister cities, as well as we're the capital city, so we've got like 50 embassies and consulates in Wellington as well, and they all carry a reasonably heavy workload. So one of the ideas that Emily will talk you through is in terms of how we can get more focused in terms of the work program. Other drivers are also our mana whenua partners. They have a strong interest in international relations. They've always played a part, but they want to grow their role in that space as well. So that's another driver that we want to see recognised in the policy as well. I'll leave it there. I'll hand over, and like Terry said, it's about 15-20 minutes, and then we can have a really good discussion.
Tēnā tātou katoa. Ko Emily Cadenhead-Deans tōku ingoa. He kai tohu mā rautaki mātua ahau. So kia ora, I'm Emily. I'm a Senior Strategy Advisor here at Council, and I'll just let Mel introduce herself as well.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Melanie Crawford tōku ingoa. I'm Melanie, I'm in the International Relations team, I'm the Senior Advisor there.
So, kia ora. So we're working together on the International Relations Policy Refresh. So I'll get us through the slides. As I've shared the slides with you already, I won't take too long on them, but I thought it's important to talk through some of the pictures as well in the context. So the purpose of today's briefing is to talk about how Pōneke connects to the world and to introduce our proposed international relations policy. So we'll talk through why cities form relationships with other cities. We'll talk about the council's role. We'll talk through some of the recent examples of benefits that we've seen from our international relationships. We'll talk about our current state and who our sister cities are. And we'll also talk about why we're updating the policy, stakeholder views, so we've already heard a lot from stakeholders, the scope of the policy, and then we'll talk through the proposed policy changes and next steps. And then there'll be time for questions and feedback. So, why do cities form city-to-city relationships? So there's been different drivers over the years as to why cities build relationships. So initially, following the World Wars, sister cities were set up to support global connection and understanding and to commemorate historical events. So we have 3 sister cities that sort of fall a bit into this category. So Harrogate in the UK, Hania in Crete, and Kanakkale in Turkey are examples from that time for us. So in the 1990s, sister cities were developed for economic benefits and access to markets, such as our relationship with Sakai in Japan and Xiamen in China. And then more recently, cities have been building relationships to learn and share from each other and to promote best practice. So an example of this is our 3-way relationship agreement of cooperation between the National Arboretum in Canberra, the Wellington Botanical Gardens, and the Singapore Botanical Gardens. So there's lots of different sorts of relationships that we hold. And recent research suggests that city-to-city relationships create opportunities for sharing and learning innovative ways to address the significant challenges facing our cities, such as climate change, resilience, extreme weather, and sea level rise. So, city councils form and maintain relationships to support people and cities to thrive. So this slide shows the council's role as provider, funder, partner, and facilitator. So we lead outbound delegations to connect our city leaders, local businesses, educational institutions, and community organisations. We fund sister city associations and cultural events through our events team. We establish and maintain international partnerships with our sister cities, international networks, and other partners. And significantly, we facilitate a platform for local businesses, embassies, experts, community organisations, and educational providers to connect with their relevant counterparts overseas. So unsurprisingly, relationships are key to our international relationships work. And so we work really closely with a lot of different stakeholders who hold different roles in our international relations space. So we work closely with our Tākahiri partners, with Wellington, New Zealand, with all of our 14 sister and friendly cities, with the international networks that we're a part of, with the diplomatic missions based here in Pōneke, with Wellington-based business, cultural, sporting and education stakeholders, and with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. So the New Zealand government, through the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs and Trade, MFAT, is responsible for New Zealand's national foreign policy on behalf of central and local government. So now I wanted to talk through some of the many benefits of building city-to-city relationships. So city-to-city relationships are important for cross-cultural understanding and exchange, supporting best practice and knowledge sharing, and creating economic opportunities. City councils have an important role in making global connections, particularly as mayors have substantial status and influence, so including access to more people and economic opportunities internationally that can support economic and cultural relationship building. Active international engagement leads to higher visibility and recognition of Pōneke Wellington, raising the profile of our city and helping to improve our reputation and enhance our competitiveness globally. Local benefits come through exposing our local community to different cultures, such as through sports, arts, education and cultural exchange. This fosters deeper understanding and tolerance, ensuring that Wellington continues to be a welcoming and inclusive city for all. So we wanted to share some recent examples of the benefits of our international relationships. So a recent economic benefit is that our arrangement with the Seashine Group, who sell Wellington products in Xiamen supermarkets. So that's the picture up there on the right corner. So Sharman's special economic zone status has meant that our goods bypass most importing procedures, which cuts down the total time taken to introduce products into Sharman supermarkets from over a year to just a few months. So a recent infrastructure benefit is that the council introduced Wellington Water to seismic resilient iron pipe industry in Sakai. So Pōneke is now installing New Zealand's first seismic resilient ductile iron pipe. So that's a picture of the pipe there. So the Wellington Phoenix Football Club joined the Mayor's delegation to China, which resulted in sporting benefits for Wellington. So the trip helped to accelerate development of its new International Football Academy, with meetings arranged that would have taken them months, if not years, to arrange without that visit to China. So the Phoenix has since signed an MOU with the Tianjin Jinmin Tigers FC, that will see the two sides play pre-season fixtures and work together on the development of youth football at both clubs. So these are really awesome examples of some of the benefits and the awesome mahi that our international relations team does. But our city-to-city relationships also benefit our partners. So they are about, they're about mutual benefit. So many cities come to us to learn about emergency management, business continuity, planning, and our Smart City project, among other things. So this includes our sister city partners, but also other delegations, including from the Pacific and Asia. Pacific and Asia. So current state. So Baz already sort of talked us through this a little bit, but we have many successful local and international relationships, including our 14 sister and friendly cities, and our 2 sister city associations that support those relationships. Alongside these, we host between 40 and 60 inbound delegations a year. We lead one large outbound delegation alongside delegates from Pōneke, with our Takahiri partners, business, cultural, education sectors. So we do one large outbound delegation per traineum, but this doesn't mean we can't do other small international trips, but they're usually funded by other people. And we're a member of 11 international networks. So for examples include Biophilic Cities and the World Cities Summit and those sorts of networks. So the Mayor hosts diplomatic community, the diplomatic community annually, and welcomes heads of mission, foreign missions, and attends diplomatic events. The council supports the Japan Festival, Kei Culture Festival, and other cultural festivals. And we work with our Takahiri partners on inbound and outbound delegations. So this next slide just explains a little bit more about our sister cities and the types of sister cities that we have. So you can see here that we have, we have 6 sister city relationships. We have 3 historical city relationships. We've got 2 friendly city relationships, 1 partner city, and then we also hold memorandum of cooperation with 2 other groups as well. So there are many reasons to refresh our 2013 international relations policy. Most significantly, we want to ensure that we have the right policy levers to support prioritising the most meaningful international relationships and activities for Pōneke. So our 2013 policy does not reflect the Council's strategic direction, so including our Takahiri partnership, economic wellbeing strategy, Tupiki Ora, Ahotini, and Te Atakura. It does not reflect the post-COVID environment or our relationship with Wellington, New Zealand, and the work plan at the end of the policy is completely out of date. So this policy refresh seeks to align our work with research and best practice, including to expand city-to-city relationships beyond purely seeking economic investment, to include also social, cultural and economic benefits and city-to-city learning. So this refresh is also responding to an action in the economic wellbeing strategy, which was to review the international relations strategy to establish clear goals for international relationships to deliver a circular economy. And the policy also aims to give clarity to our partners about what support we can and can't offer to partners to help us to prioritise and manage many inbound delegation requests. So there's an operational component as well. So as Baz mentioned, we've actually been working on this international relations policy refresh for some time. And in early 2023, we held internal and external interviews with key stakeholders, so in the business, education, sporting and cultural community. This year we've held further hui with Wellington New Zealand, MFAT, Pacific Advisory Group, and have also been connecting with our Tākahiri partners. We also held internal hui and a staff workshop as well to connect with the many teams who intersect internationally. So this slide shows what we've heard from those stakeholders. So they want us to take advantage of our position as the capital city. They want us to work with mana whenua to build Indigenous partnerships and create opportunities for Māori. They want us to prioritise international relationships that have interest in Wellington's vibrant small business and startup economy. They also want us to articulate the areas Wellington wants to learn about or share to support focus new and existing international relationships. They also want to support clear prioritisation of delegations and define what the team can offer. So what we're proposing is really responding to what we've heard. So this next slide shows the scope of our proposed international relations policy. So we propose taking a slightly different approach. And so the proposed policy will state our objectives and principles, our role, and then specific operational policies on the key areas of our work. And it will outline key stakeholders. And then we're proposing alongside the policy are the international relations training priorities that will be agreed by councillors at the beginning of each trainium. So these 3-year priorities will inform the international relations work prioritisation for each trainium and the work programme. And the first training priorities will be agreed in the first 6 months of the 2025 trainium. So this prioritisation approach helps us to be more proactive in what we want from our international relationships. It allows us to define what we want to see, what benefits we want to see for Wellington. So this slide shows our proposed international relations policy purpose, goal and objectives. So the purpose is to outline how Wellington City Council prioritise our international relationships and activities. The goal is the Council's international relationships seek to connect Pōneke to the world to support our city vision, Pōneke, the creative capital where people and nature thrive. And then we have 4 policy objectives. So the first one is to foster global connection and understanding to support Wellington being a welcoming, open and inclusive city. The second objective is to facilitate and connect Tākahiri partners to the world to achieve their international aspirations. So our Tākahiri partners are already building relationships with our sister cities and are operating globally. So this policy formalises our Tākahiri partnership in the international space. The third objective is to facilitate and connect local businesses, community, educational and cultural groups to the world to achieve their intended outcomes. So this objective speaks to our facilitator role, to use our many international relationships to support outcomes for people, businesses and communities. So the final objective is to collaborate with cities internationally to learn and share best practice to solve our challenges. So this is responding to the huge challenges facing the globe. Cities everywhere are facing the impacts of climate change, earthquakes, extreme weather, transitioning to a circular economy. So this objective acknowledges that city-to-city relationships create opportunities for solving some of these problems. So all 4 objectives, as you can see, are quite broad. So they allow each council to identify their international relations priorities for each trainium. So this slide quite simply shows the key changes between the current international relations policy and then the changes that we're proposing. So we're proposing to widen the focus beyond just an economic focus to include social, cultural and environmental outcomes as well as city-to-city learning and sharing. We're also updating the policy to reflect our current vision and strategies and most significantly our Tākahiri partnership. In the proposed policy, Tākahiri partners are given the opportunity to be involved in international relationships and activities. A key proposed change is that the international relationships and activities are prioritised every 3 years by the Council. So this prioritisation will will be informed by long-term plan strategic priorities, by international opportunities that are existing over the 3 years identified by the team, and also benefit for Pōneke. So we're also proposing that the prioritisation process includes, again, agreeing the key details of the one outbound delegation. So this will be decided at the same time. And the policy will also stipulate new operational and outcome requirements for the council to be able to host inbound delegation. This is to ensure all inbound delegations are meaningful and able to be planned and well thought through to enable mutual benefits for us and for our partners. So next steps. So the policy refresh is primarily focused on operational measures to support the prioritisation of international relations activities. So it's not significantly different from the previous policy. So the proposed policy will also work within the current LTP budget for international relations. Therefore, we're proposing to do targeted stakeholder consultation, including with Takahiri partners, our diplomatic community, our sister cities, the business community, and cultural and sporting community, and education providers. So we're proposing the adoption of the policy by Kurau Mā Tinitini, Social, Culture and Economic Committee, in late November. This will be followed by communication with all stakeholders about the policy changes, obviously, and then the international relations training and priorities will be agreed in the 6 months following the election. So thank you for listening. That's a lot of information. So now I'd like to hear any questions and feedback. So I'll hand over to Councillor O'Neill.
Cool. No, my Emily and Melanie. Team Pātai. All right, Councillor Young.
This is more just what I wanted to expand on a point made by Emily, which is about the Kuramoto, the Japanese people who do these seismic resistance pipes. Because when they came over here, the reason they came to Wellington was because they decided they'd never exported their pipes before, and they thought they should have a look around the world, see where there were seismic issues, and then they realised Wellington was a sister city, and that's why they came here. And that's when I realised, ka-ching, there is a point to having a sister city, because it was a major thing to have these very flexible pipes, and it was purely because of sister city. So there is a benefit, and also a cultural benefit, because when they came down and had a bit of New Zealand culture.
Thank you, Councillor Young. That is helpful context. What I might suggest we just roll through Pātai at the minute, though that was really helpful to share. So thank you. Yeah. So as I said at the beginning of the workshop, we're just going to roll through questions first, and then we'll roll into feedback, just to make sure we've all got a good base level of understanding before providing feedback. Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much again, Emily. You were talking at the beginning of this presentation that you're focusing on the things that we actually want to do, but what are our resources like to do all these things? Because you've added in quite a few other parameters about, what we'd like to do apart from economic. And so do we have enough resource to actually do all these things? Because it's going to involve sort of having discussions with a lot of other groups.
Thank you, Councillor. Good question. I think so. We are actually already doing work that in the cultural and environmental and sporting space, as you can see from those benefits. We're already having benefits that are much wider than economic. So what the policy is proposing is we do that prioritisation exercise at the beginning of each triennium. So that means we will prioritise through that exercise, which will mean that we're able to work within the resource that we have.
Cool. Colleagues, any further Pātai or any Pātai online? Councillor Randall.
Yes, just a very broad question, and that is, roughly how much of council funding goes towards the international side of things? Recognising it, I do think it's important, but just to give an idea.
Baz might answer that one.
Very little. You're talking about 3 people. And that's about it, really. There are some other costs in terms of if travel is done. A lot of that is subsidised. Obviously, if we get invited overseas, we'll go overseas. But and that comes back for a committee decision anyway. But it is quite it's a very small team. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I see no further pātai, so we'll roll on to feedback. I had Councillor Matthews on the list.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess I just want to say two things that I think are very positive. First of all, I think having a per traineum input into the priorities is a really good idea. And I think that probably for most of us, other than sort of going to events, which I have to admit I'm terrible on this space, that, you know, we have very little kind of connection to the international work. Most councillors will probably never go on an international trip or, you know, so I think that sort of connection early in the training would be quite positive, and also just means that we're constantly, you know, making sure that what we're doing is current and responding to the world as it is, and the kind of, so I think that's really a good development, and I support that. And the second thing is I'm just very encouraged that and support our Takaihiri partners having more of a role, and particularly if that is, you know, and it is clear that that is a priority that has come directly from mana whenua. So I think that's really great in a way that we can work together to support each other's aspirations and kind of enable that development to happen. So just very positive on those 2 points. Thank you.
Kia ora. Councillor Calvert, did you want to give feedback?
Yeah, it comes back to one of the things about funding, and I'd really like to see that when we fund something, and even through the traineums, that we have transparency, because sometimes what we're finding is that there's funding coming from different pockets around the organisation and not necessarily what we thought. So I would like to see how that's addressed. I'd like to, what I don't see is any of our policies aligned to where government is. Like, for instance, government's pursuing relationships with India. And I don't see that being reflected, that because we can often leverage off what the government's doing and the government agencies involved. So I'd like to see something like that reflected. I have an issue that we are calling ourselves Punaki. I'm not addressing that we are also called Wellington. We don't have a formal te reo name as far as I'm aware. I know there's Punaki and Whanganui-a-Tara, but I'm not seeing Wellington. So I would really like us to see Wellington in whatever we produce. So yes, and I can see some smirks from officers, but I really would appreciate that not to happen. Thank you.
I don't think it's appropriate that those kind of comments are made. Look, officer. All right. Okay. Officers have put in a lot of work to take us here today, and I think it's appropriate that we treat each other with respect.
So even though we're in feedback, I thought I'd take the opportunity and just talk about the alignment with central government, and particularly the reference to India, Diane. I think that's very pertinent and very good. Actually, in the 2013 policy, we did identify India as an area of interest in terms of developing a sister city alongside Australia as well. Obviously, both of those opportunities were pursued. A sister city was developed with Canberra in Australia. Approaches were made to two other areas that were in the policy at that point in time. One of those was India, and actually the west coast of the United States, San Francisco. In essence, where we got to in terms of both of those relationships is San Francisco politely said that they were full and that they weren't interested at this point in time. Potentially is the nicest way to say it. And India also wasn't at that point in time ready to develop any sister city relationships at that point in time. But I understand the connection with where central government is going. It's something that we keep our eye on.
Mayor Whānau online.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some feedback based on the China trip last year. So I just want to thank the team for this work. It's really exciting and it's great to refresh the strategy. And I see a lot of potential in our international relationships. Just noting the Takaihiri part, so we had, of course, Tākai Here Partners when we went to China, and the mayors there and the councils there were just incredibly fascinated to learn about how we prioritise te tiriti, what we do to empower Māori communities, and that kind of spread quite wide to other international territories. So when Laurie went to an international conference, it was brought up there. And now Hawaii's been in touch with us to, see how we can share policy information on how New Zealand established matariki and things like that. So, as things get a bit harder, I think the sharing of knowledge and culture, especially with our Indigenous partners, is really useful. It's also good to note that we're such a small company, and it would be easy for people to forget we exist, but they don't. And they offer international delegations with most of the trip paid for. We really need to take advantage of that. And there really is, even with the climate crisis, other countries just in-person in-person meetings, and utilising a mayoral delegation is kind of priceless in terms of getting other people meetings when the mayor is over there as well. So good work. Looking forward to seeing how this progresses.
Kia ora. Thank you, Me Whānau. Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much. I particularly like the way we're going to look at the policy on incoming groups, because 2 weeks ago I attended a dinner and a meeting with the Shaman delegation together with Jennifer, and what the leader of the group there said that they're over here to explore business opportunities, to look at how we can actually work together, but then following that, he said they've actually only got 1 day in Wellington, and so they were actually leaving the next morning at 4 a.m. So I thought, well, did we actually know about that meeting beforehand? So could we have actually arranged something, or were they so pressed for time that there was no time to actually have a meeting in there? So some of these things, I think that they travel a long way to come here, and yet they're only here for a day. So do we have any input into their schedule and the amount of time to spend here? None at all. Okay, great, thanks.
Feel free to respond to any comments raised as well.
Yes. Tom can also support me on this. We don't have any input onto the schedule. They will tell us when they are travelling to New Zealand and how long their program is and the types of meetings. So it's up to us as a team to try and fit as much of their requirements into their short period of time. And one of the reasons we're wanting to have more of a robust process about hosting inbound delegations is for them to give us more time. So often the requests come at very short notice. Appreciate that they've got a long process to get it to us before they come here, and more information about what outcomes they want so that we can then see if it aligns. So sometimes they're coming here looking at public health or education or something that's not within our remit. So the more information we can have earlier, the better chance we have of ensuring that they're getting what they want and the outcomes are achieved. And hopefully we may also be able to perhaps suggest they extend their stay by half a day to ensure that they can do what they want to do. Yeah, but we just need a lot more information up front and earlier.
I'd like to provide just a little bit of feedback from the CCO perspective. So with Te Maraatane Zealandia, we've found an amazing amount of success with relationships of international delegations that are in particular really interested in Aotearoa as a science and research centre. And another point and so we get an immense amount of economic benefit from those delegations and the promotion of Zealandia in a green city overseas. And the other side to that is I found when we've hosted international delegations there or people from international teams is that often different progressive centres are really interested in our relationship with Indigenous people and comparing the relationship that their government has with Indigenous people and how that kind of folds into science and research and people. So I just wanted to reaffirm the priority that has been spoken about today and the value of mana whenua partnerships, and to kind of comment that I think it's a really important and certainly something that is substantiated in my own personal experience of working with people from other countries is that they are interested in those two kaupapa, and to go beyond just an economic focus to well-being. Actually, they kind of loop into each other, right? They're super connected. So that would be my experience. Cool. Colleagues, any further feedback? Oh, cool. Thanks, Councillor Randall. Anybody online? No. Well, thank you so much, Mai, Melanie and Emily and Tom and Baz, for everyone and all your mahi here, and appreciate colleagues that feedback over email. Really appreciate it. Look forward to voting on it in November.
Thank you